We'll do a review on Likutei Sichas in Chelek Tezvav, the fifth Sicha for the Parshas Toldos. So Rashi Sicha. And the Rebbe explains the Rashi and comes up with a tremendous insight as usual, and we'll go step by step. But the pasuk discusses that Yitzchak asked Yaakov to go to Paddan Aram to get a wife from there, and not to take a wife from the Bnei Saknani, which were in their midst, but to go to Paddan Aram. And then the pasuk says that Esav heard this, and the pasuk goes through to say all the different things that Esav heard. His father said that you shouldn't take a wife from there, you should go to Paddan Aram. And then the pasuk says, Vayishma Yaakov vayelech Paddan Aram. That's the pasuk the Rebbe is explaining in the Rashi over here. So that Yaakov listened and he went to Paddan Aram. So normally we would teach this, that his father told him to go and he listened, but that's not the real pshat of here, as Rashi explains. Rashi says this was all part that Esav saw. Esav saw that Yaakov listened. The fact that Yaakov listened, that was written already in the pasuk before. Here, the pasuk is telling us that this is what Esav saw, that Yaakov listened. Let's look in the Sicha, quoting from the Rashi. In pasuk, Vayishma Yaakov. So the pasuk says Yaakov listened. Gomer vayelech Paddan Aram. He went to Paddan Aram. Is Rashi mefarish of the verter Vayishma Yaakov? Rashi interprets, quoting the words that Yaakov listened. So he says, "Mechubar le'inyan shel Milo." This is connected to the subject of above. The pasuk says above that Esav saw what happened. This is part of the connection, that he saw that he listened to his father. Rashi touches on Mechubar le'inyan shel Milo. Vayar Esav kivorach Yitzchak, that Yitzchak benched v'goymer Yaakov. And Rashi quotes V'chi sholach oisei Paddan Aram, that he sent him to Paddan Aram. And then V'chi shoma Yaakov el Aviv, and Yaakov listened to his father. His father sent him, and he listened to him. And v'holach Paddan Aram, he listened to his father. He went to Paddan Aram. And V'chiro is b'nei Canaan, and that the daughters of Canaan are bad in the eyes of Yitzchak. So that's why he went to Yishmael. That's the Rashi. So, what is the Pashto Pshat Rashi is coming to tell us? Rashi is coming to tell us, don't think that this is part of the story, what happened to Yaakov, that Yitzchak tells him to go, and Yaakov listened and he goes. Rashi tells you, no, this is not telling you the story of Yaakov. This is telling you what Esav saw about what Yaakov did, because the story of Yaakov doesn't need to be repeated, and this is right in the middle of what's happening with Esav. Look inside. Learn and dig in Pashtus, learning simply. Rashi is coming to caution us over here. You cannot learn, can't say that the Torah, that when the Torah says Yaakov listened, the Torah is trying to tell you what happened that Yaakov listened. As Yaakov Avinu gefolgt seinem Vater und gegangen came Paddan Aram. Yaakov Avinu listened to his father and he went to Paddan Aram. Weil das ist schon erzählt geworden früher. This has already been related to us earlier in their parsha. It says, Vayishlach Yitzchak es Yaakov. Yitzchak said Yaakov, and Vayelech Gomer, and he went. So it says that he went already. Und die Psukim, was stehen far und noch Vayishma Yaakov, and the Psukim that talk about, says before and after Yishma Yaakov, reden gar wegen Esav, and they're talking about Esav. They're not talking about Yaakov. The Ribber is Rashi Masbir. That's what Rashi explains. As Vayishma Yaakov kum behemshech to Vayar Esav. Vayishma Yaakov is a follow-up. It flows after. Esav saw that Yaakov listened. Was steht im frierdigen Pasuk? In the previous Pasuk it says Vayar Esav. And this Pasuk Vayishma is part of what Vayar Esav. Der Pasuk rechnet ois noch a prat was Esav hat gesehen. The Torah enumerates an additional detail, that which Esav saw. Esav saw that Yaakov actually picked up and left to Paddan Aram. So that's the Pshat in Rashi. Why does Rashi, the Rebbe wants to know, have to go into all the details and that this and that? He saw all these things. You just say this is connected to the previous pasuk, that this is what Esav saw, and not telling you what happened that Yaakov left, but Esav saw that Yaakov left. Rashi could have just said Mechuper L'maylo. Aleph, Oder Oiftu, this novelty, as Vayishma Yaakov is mechuber to Vayar Esav, that Vayishma Yaakov is connected, that is what Esav saw. Well, given move on, when Rashi will gesagt bekitzer, this would have been understood, even if Rashi would have said briefly, short, Vayishma Yaakov mechuber l'inyan shel Maylo Vayar Esav. This is connected to the above subject. Esav saw that he listened to his father. So Limvos is Rashi mefared alle Protim, was Esav hat gesehen, welche stehen befehlischen Pasuk. Why does Rashi need to detail all of the specifics, that which Esav saw, and they're all in the Pasuk? It says what he saw. Rashi goes back. Why does Rashi have to go through all this? Just say this is connected, and this pasuk is part, a hemshech, of what he saw. Then it seems like Rashi skips one detail in the pasuk. Rashi mentions he sent him to Paddan Aram, but Rashi doesn't mention that he also told him not to take from the daughters of Canaan. Why does Rashi miss out that detail? Base in Pasuk, where der zelt noch a Sach. In the Pasuk, it's related an additional matter. Was Esav hat gesehen, that what Esav saw, and what did he see? By Tzav Olov Lemer, and he told him to say, Lo yitikach isha b'bnei Canaan. He told him, don't take a wife from the Bnei Canaan. Farvos is Rashi mashmid dem prat. How come Rashi leaves out this detail that he told him not to marry from the Bnei Canaan? He just says to him, go to Paddan Aram. Misses out that. And later on, we'll see the way the Rebbe's Mahalach, the Rebbe explains it. Everything is beautifully why Rashi misses that detail in the way the Rebbe explains the Rashi. Gimel. Zwischen the protim in dem inyan shel Maylo, amongst the details of the above subject, what Yar Esav, so welchem Vayishma is mechuber, that it's connected. So you want to say this follows the previous thing. So you want to say that Esav saw and he sent it to Paddan Aram. That's what he saw, and this is connected to that. But we're already talking about this. Why does Rashi say also V'chishoma Yaakov el Oviv? And also then he says in the V'holach Paddan Aram, which says later on, we're trying to say this pasuk connects to the previous pasuk, so enumerated previous things that happened till then what he saw, and this pasuk follows that. That's what he saw. Why does Rashi enumerate our pasuk as well? That's what the Rebbe asked us in Gimel. Zwischen the protim in dem inyan shel Maylo, amongst the details of the above subjects, welchem Vayishma Yaakov is mechuber, to Vayishma Yaakov is connected. Hot lechoyre an ort auszurechnen nor dil welche stehen far Vayishma Yaakov. Only those that are written before Vayishma Yaakov. So, because Vayishma Yaakov is the following That's on top of it. Aber nicht the Prat Vayishma Yaakov Gufa, but not to mention that this Vayishma Yaakov, because this is what we're saying. We're saying that Vayishma Yaakov is mechuber to what Esav saw. Why is he mentioning this Prat again? Umekolshkein is the Prat that after this it says Kiroz B'nei Canaan. But steht noch Vayishma Yaakov. That's is after. So he saw this, and everything flows from there. Why does Rashi mention these two details, that Roz B'nei Canaan and the V'chishama Yaakov Elav Olach Baden Aram? That seems to not fit. And Rashi should have said, Mechuber L'maylam, bring down the details until we come to V'chishama Yaakov Elav. And then the end of Rashi is even more surprising. Why do we have to Rashi bring down that he also went to Ishmael? Dalet Nochmer Pele is even more surprising is Rashi is Messiah. Rashi concludes V'holach kam hu el Yishmael. But those gehert nicht zu the protein, but Esav had gesehen. That doesn't see that. Esav didn't see that. That's not what he saw. That's what he did. Nordos is the tetzol b'poil from Vayar Esav. That's the result. In actuality, what happened because what Esav saw. Then there had gesehen as rois b'nois Canaan. That they are the daughters of Canaan are bad in the eyes of Yitzchak. Is it back to Yishmael? He went to Yishmael. So why does Rashi bring that down? So the Rebbe Zog says, "We can need zogen as with them siyum, v'holach gam hu el Yishmael." Maybe what Rashi wants to tell us that he also went to Yishmael, and he wants to say that all these details that I mentioned before is the cause that he went to Yishmael. Meint Rashi zu masbir zayin. Rashi is trying to explain as the alle protim was vayar Esav, all these details that Esav saw, had der vier zum vayelech Esav Yishmael, this led that Esav went to Yishmael. Und der Rebbe rechnet euch Rashi alle protim welche stehen in Posik. Then he counts all the details that says in the Posik. Oich v'chi shamachulu, and oich v'holach that he went, and v'chi roz, and then v'holach that he went also. Because those were all that led Yishmael to go. So we're bringing in the details, not just the mechuber to the previous, but because he saw and this and that and everything together, that brought to the result that V'holach Gam Hu also went. That's not really, we can't say that. Weil der Inyan as Vayad Esav is a Hagdomo und the Siba fun Vayelech Esav. That part of it, that because Esav saw, so that's an introduction, and that's the reason why Vayelech Esav is verstandig lo sich allein. That's self-understood. Euch on Rashi's pirush as Vayishma Yaakov is mechuber le'in shomayla. Even without Rashi's explanation that Vayishma Yaakov is connected to the previous subject, wird man verstanden as alle protim welche stehen in Posik. We would understand that all the details that are written in our Posik, Oyser Vayishma Yaakov, besides Vayishma Yaakov, sein Hagdome zum Oifsver Vayelech Esav, are an introduction to the conclusion of Vayelech Esav. Then, was Rashi Toldos rein in sein Pirush mechuber le'inyan shomayla. The fact that Rashi puts that detail into the Posik Shomayla is verstandig. Das kommt in Verbindung mit dem Pirush. Now this is associated, it's connected to the commentary. Davke noch Rashi's oiftu as Vayishma Yaakov is mechuber le'inyan shomayla. Only after, specifically, after Rashi tells us his chiddush. Vayishma Yaakov is connected to the subject above. And alle protim v'charachas shirechon tois and all the details that Rashi enumerates. Verstandig der Posig Vayelech Esav el Yishmael. Now we understand the Esav el Yishmael. Not just because that's the introduction. The Rebbe is Rashi Messiah V'olach Gam el Yishmael. That's what Rashi concludes, that he too went to Yishmael. Ois base. So the Rebbe is going to explain that the Emerson in the Parsha, it says 2 times, Vayar Esov. First, it says he saw that his father blessed him and he sent him and he told him not to marry, to go into Padnarom, to marry their wife there. And then it says again, Vayar Esov Kiroz B'nai Canaan. 2 times Vayar. The Rebbe learns these are 2 separate things. The one is the actual things he saw what happened, and the second is what he understood. The Rebbe explains, because in the next ois, why if Esav saw what his father wanted Yaakov to do, besides not marrying Ad Canaan, he had a special request to go to the Bnei Slovan. How come Esav didn't do that? And the Rebbe explains how these 2 Vayars explain that. The first Vayar is just telling us why why Esav did not think that applies to him, that he needs to go to Padan Aram. That applies only to Yaakov to get the brachas there. The second Vayar, he understood that he should not marry the Bnei Yishmael, that applies to him. And that answers all the Arichas and Lashon Rashi. Let's look inside. Base. Das verstehen behagdim. So we'll understand this by first introducing. Vibald as noch dem wie der Pasuk sagt schon einmal, since after the Torah says, the verse says already once. Vayar Esav says, Kiboirach Yitzchok, that Yitzchok had blessed Yaakov. V'shulach Oisar, and he sent him away, going by Tzavalov, and he told him, Chazeti b'da Pasuk Nachamol, then the Pasuk repeats again, Vayar Esav. What did he see? Kiroz b'nai Canaan, ben Yitzchok Aviv. They're bad in the Bnei Canaan, were bad in the eyes of his father Yitzchok, until he went Vayelach Goimer, he went to Yishmael. It's verstandig from them. So from this we understood, as die Sachen was Esav had gesehen, bestehen von 2 Sugim. That these things that Esav saw consist of 2 categories. That's 2 times Vayar. Was bei jedem Sug is given an andere Öffnung von Vayar. By each of these categories, there was a different type of seeing. When the Rebbe steht Vayar Esav 2 Mal. That's why Vayar Esav, it says twice. Und der Chiluk zwischen the 2 Vayar is the difference between the 2 Vayar is similar to what Rashi said earlier in Onei Parshas Vayera, in the beginning of the portion of Vayera. The Pasuk says over there with the Malachim that they came to Avram. So it says first Vayar, then it says again Vayar, Shnei Pamim. And Rashi explains, Harishin Kimashmoy, the first one is literally that he saw physically. Vasheni Loshen Havone, the second one means he understood. Vayar, he understood. Nistakel Chulu Ve'even Chulu, he looked into and he understood. Which means like this: der Vayar Esav by us, the first time when he saw, meint as gesehen kemashmoy, literally he saw what Sachen was seinen vorgekommen by andere things that were taking place by others. In other words, they were not really associated with him, what he should do. He saw what Yaakov, zwischen Yitzchok and Yaakov. That was what took place between Yitzchok and Yaakov. Beirach Goimeres Yaakov, the Pasuk says that Yitzchok blessed Yaakov, Shilach Oisoi sent him, Yaakov, going by Tzav Olav, he told him everything as it pertains to Yaakov. Dagegen der zweiter Vayar, as opposed to the second time Vayar, is Loshen Havana. Here it's already a language of understanding. Hat sich überzeugt, he was convinced, he realized, Nistakel Chulu Haven, as we said there, he looked at it and he understood. The second time, Azroz B'nai Canaan B'nai Yitzchok Aviv, that the daughters of Canaan are bad in his father's Yitzchok's eyes. But the second time is an inyan is imnageya. That is something which is touches him. And this obligates him, as the flow, the continuation of the psukim, as the vayar otim bavir to gain to Yishmael. That second vayar convinced him that he needs to go to Yishmael. However, this needs to be understood. Der Tachlis von ganzen Sipur von Vayar Esav. What is the purpose? So now we're saying the first time he just saw a conversation between Yitzchak and Yaakov, not related to him. The second Vayar is that relates to him. So why would the Torah, before saying that Yishmael went and married the daughters of that Esav married daughters of Yishmael, why would the Torah say what he saw a conversation between Yitzchak and Yaakov if it has no connection to him? The whole reason the Torah is telling us that would cause them. So how are we explaining that? So that we verstehen. The tachlis from ganzen Sipur from Vayar Esav. The goal of the entire story that Esav saw is doch zu erklären die Sibbe. That is to explain the reason was hat der Viert, which led to Vayelech Esav el Yishmael Vayikach Gomer. That why Esav went to Yishmael and took the daughters of Yishmael as a wife for himself. Esav did. Und if dem wohl gewinnt genug der Prat von zweiten Vayar. So for that is sufficient the details of the second Vayar, that the daughters of Esav were, the daughter of Canaan were bad in the eyes of his father Yitzchak. So therefore, Esav didn't go to the daughters of Canaan, and he went to the daughter of Yishmael. Vayar Esav kiroz b'nei Canaan ve'ene Yitzchak aviv. He saw that they were bad. Was the riber vayelech Esav goymer. That's why he went to the daughters of Yishmael. Why do we even need the whole thing, the whole Vayar? The first was der Zell the Torah, the ganze Ariches was Esav hat gesehen beim ersten Vayar. Why is the Torah relating to us the entire long story that Esav saw by the first Vayar, just what he saw? L'chola Yoser, at most, what Master given to their Zell and them Prat, it would have been sufficient to relate the detail fun. He told them, don't take a wife from the daughters of Canaan. Was von dem hoter Vayar. That's who he saw. Verstanden as Rois b'nei Canaan that the daughters of Canaan are bad. Und the Ribe, that's why he went. The other details aren't important for the goal. Why do we need to know everything that took place between Yitzchak and Yaakov? How does that relate to what happens now? And the problem with Davke Dem Prat is Rashi Mashmit Kinal. And as we said before, that detail, all the Pratim, Rashi doesn't bring down the Leitika Chishim B'Bnei Canaan, which seems to be the key. So the Rebbe explains that the first Vayar is telling us how come Yishmael did not also go to Padan Aram. If he saw that his father wants Yaakov to go to Padan Aram, to Lavan, so why is he only taking part of it and he's taking Bnei Yishmael is not going to Padan Aram? The first Vayar is telling us that Yishmael saw what his father said, that belonged to Yaakov, that special instruction to get the brachas there. Let's look inside. Gimel. The beer in them, the explanation in this. Das was the Torah that said the ganze Ariches. This, that the Torah relates to us, the whole lengthy stories, Svarent or not Mia, is to answer a surprise in the Inyan from Vayelech Esav el Yishmael, and the idea that Esav went to Yishmael. Das was Esav must be gegangen. Gegain. The gegain, I don't think is correct. I think it's gegangen. That's the thing. Das was Esav is gegangen nemen Yishmael's Tochter. This that Esav went to take the daughter of Yishmael, not genommen von the Bnei Canaan, that he didn't take from the daughters of Canaan, that were in the neighborhood, is given zu weisen, that was in order to show, as steht nicht up von Yaakov, that he does not any less than Yaakov, and that he too fulfills the wishes of Yitzchak. That's why he's not going to marry the daughters of Canaan. And that's why not only he already married them, but he's going to go now to marry the daughter of Yishmael. Is that move on? Yitzchak had instructed Yaakov. Not only that you shall not take a wife from the daughters of Canaan, and they sent them also to Padan Aram, to take a wife from there. Und Yaakov hat mekayim given seidem tzad shalili. He fulfilled both the negative, not marrying from Bnei Canaan, and seidem tzad chiyuvi, and also the positive, to go to Padan Aram. He did not take from the daughters of Canaan. He went to Padan Aram. And for Vosot Esav nor nid genommen Isha mibnois Canaan. So how come Esav only thing to show that he's no less than Yaakov only did that part? He didn't take the woman from the Bnei Canaan. He didn't go to Padan Aram to take a wife from there. In order to answer this surprise, is Anhogas Esav in what Esav's conduct. So Torah says 2 times. Vayar Esav saw 2 times at Esav. As in the Sachen, welche Esod gesehen seine gewähnt Kanal, the things that he saw, there were 2. Zwei Sugim, there were 2 categories. Was jeder masbir sein an ander Prat in Vayelech Esav el Yishmael. They each one come to explain another detail in that Esav went to Yishmael. One that he didn't take from the Bnei Canaan, and then that he did the positive, he went to the daughters of Yishmael. That he didn't do the Canaan, but he did not go to Padan Aram. The rest of Vayar is Masbir. The first Vayar explains for Vos Esav Oton Genumen as a Dapnit Gain came Padan Aram, that he assumed that he doesn't have to go to Padan Aram, that he accepted that he doesn't have to go. But the Zweiter Vayar. Parvos Esav. Explain, here it says again, Gegain. Instead of Gegain, maybe that's the right Yiddish. Parvos Esav is Gegain Nemen, Aisha from Yishmael, that he went to take a wife from the daughters of Yishmael. That's the 2 Vayars. And the Rebbe will explain that Esav assumed that the reason why Yaakov needs to go to Padan Aram is to get the brachas that Yitzchak blessed him, and that's where he's going to get the brachas. But not for his brachas. Esav didn't get those brachas, so he doesn't have to go Padan Aram. The only thing is that he has to do is not to go to the Bnei Canaan, and therefore he went to Yishmael. Babir. The shlichus was Yitzchak geshik Yaakov ke Padan Aram. The reason why he sent Yaakov to Padan Aram, lokachas lo mishom ishot, to take a wife from there, is loit Esav's meinung, in his opinion, given nit der Far weil Yitzchak gehalten as nor dort is der shidduch haroi. It's not because Yitzchak thought that only there is the proper shidduch, nor a mittel und keli zu bekommen die brachas. But Yitzchak thought, Esav is thinking that the reason Yitzchak is sending him, because why is he sending Yaakov to Padan Aram? Because that will be an instrument, that'll be a way, and a vehicle, and a vessel, and a keli, Zu bekommen die Brachas mit welchem Yitzchak hat ihm gebencht, to receive the blessing which Yitzchak blessed Yaakov. Und wie der Posik ist da noch einmal madgish, as the Posik emphasizes it again, we know already that he blessed him, but the Torah says again over here, Vayad Esav Kiberach, that Hashem, that Esav saw that Yaakov was blessed, that Yitzchak blessed Yaakov. He sent him to, and when he blessed him, because this is all what Esav thought, that this has all to do with the idea of just for the blessing of Yaakov, not because it's written on the river. So therefore, he was, in his view, he held as the the fact that Yaakov listened and he went to Padan Aram is Nageh Blois Yaakov. That's only Yaakov has to go to Padan Aram. And to him, Esav, this has no connection. And the Pharisees nicht gegangen to Padan Aram, so he didn't go to Padan Aram. Takeg Yitzchak Sivoy, but as opposed to the command of Yitzchak, the instruction, Lo tikach isha mibnei Canaan, don't take a wife from the daughters of Canaan, is in them, Vayar, he understood, even Esav, Adosis, Valrois, Bnei Canaan, Ben Yitzchakoviv. That has to do with the fact that the daughters of Canaan are bad in the eyes of his father Yitzchak. So that has a connection to him too. He shouldn't do it. The Riberot and Hashaychis, Hotes Hashaychis, Oich Tzuin. And therefore, it's connected to him as well. On the far, Vayelech Esav el Yishmael Gomer. That's why Esav goes to Yishmael. So now, the Rebbe is going to explain the Rashi's length and why Rashi omits that detail that the daughters of Canaan were eyes in the Yitzchak, because the Mechuber Lamaila, Rashi Dafki wants to enumerate all the things that apply only to Yaakov and not to Esav. And is that Vayar, the first Vayar, but not that part of Rois B'nai Canaan, because that applies actually to Esav as well. That's the second Vayar. Let's look inside. Like them, Alim is moving the Arichas and Pirush Rashi. According to all the above, we understand the lengthy explanation in Rashi. Noch dem wie Rashi sagt, as Vayishma Yaakov, is nit a Maimer Hamusger. After Rashi says that Vayishma Yaakov is not just a closed, which means like a parenthesis, because one can learn it's a parenthesis that in the middle of talking about Esav, the Torah says Yaakov listened as a parenthesis, not part of the conversation. So Rashi says no, that the Yishma Yaakov is not a parenthesis talking about what actually happened with Yaakov, but this is actually a hemshech of what Esav saw, what was going on. Mechubar unapratim vayar Esav, that it's connected and it's in a detail of what Esav saw. Kumt Rashi bavornen, so Rashi comes to caution, was beim ersten vayar Esav far die Werte vayishma Yaakov goimer steht. So Rashi is coming to answer by the first time before vayishma Yaakov says vayitzav olov leimer lesikach ishum ibnes Canaan. Don't take from the daughters of Canaan. If we're saying that Yishmael, that's not what Yishmael saw or what he cared or he thought. But here in the first Vayar, we're just talking about that Hashem, that Yitzchak is telling Yaakov to go to Padan Aram to get the brachas over there, as the Rebbe explained. So, but it says in the pasuk also, he saw that as well. Why does that belong in the first Vayar, when the first Vayar is just that he saw what relates, what's going on between Yitzchak and Yaakov and are not related to him. The L'chayre Leutnev in the Morton Biur, according to the above mentioned explanation. As the erster Vayar Esav, that the first Vayar Esav Masbir Zayin is coming to explain Esav's nit genken Padnarom. That is explaining why he did not go to Padnarom, because it doesn't apply to him. Well, because those details, he saw them that have no connection to him. But it turns out as Vayitzavel of Lamer, that part of the Sikach Isham Bibnes Kanan, that is connected to what Esav did apply to himself. That's coming to explain why you shouldn't take from the Bnei Kanan. So that was why is it written in the first one, in the first Vayar? And that's why Rashi is telling you, right, even though it says in the Pasuk, but that's not what Vayar. And that's why Rashi omits that detail of Rois B'nai Canaan, because that's not the first Vayar, even though it says in the Pasuk. The Riber is Rashi Mefarish, as Vayishma Yaakov is Mechuber L'Inyan Shomayla. It's connected to the above. This is part of what Esav saw. He specifies, he translates the details, what is connected. That he blessed Yitzchak, and the midst jumps over and springt the river on his mashmit. He jumps over and he excludes, doesn't bring down the detail from Vayitzav Goyim Lo Sikach Goyim, not to take. That's written in the pasuk, but Rashi doesn't bring it. The mit is Madgish. He emphasized by jumping over and not bring down this detail. As the Vayitzav Goymer is that when he told Esav, that when Esav saw that he told Yaakov Vayitzav, when Esav saw it, that is not important to what Yaakov listened and went to Padan Aram. That's not connected to that. That's its own thing, going Padan Aram for the brachas. Dem Esav mershtem vayar. Nor shaykh zum zweiten vayar Esav. That is not, even though it's in the pasuk and before it was vayar, but Rashi admits it to tell you that detail that the pasuk mentions, that the Rois B'nai Canaan belongs to the second vayar. Nor shaykh zum zweiten vayar Esav. Ki Rois B'nai Canaan. He saw Rois B'nai Canaan because he saw what his father told to Yaakov, and that's why they also went to Yishmael. So even though it's written there, but Rashi excludes it to tell you that that's not the first Vayar. That belongs to the second Vayar. Because he said, so when the pasuk says Kiroz B'nai Canaan, how did he see it? Okay, so that was a detail that he saw by Yitzchak saying that to Yaakov. But the meat is moving the dik Loshan Rashi. We also understand the specific language of Rashi. Was bringt dem Prat v'chirois b'nois Knan erst noch volach paden aram. And the Rashi, he brings down the detail that the b'nois Knan are bad after he went to Padan Aram. Technically, Rois b'nois Knan, that's why he goes to Padan Aram. But the way the Rebbe explained it, he went to Padan Aram. That's for one, in the view of Esav. He went to Padan Aram to get the brachas. And Rois b'nois Canaan, the second thing, that's why he too should not take from the b'nois Canaan. That's why he goes to Yishmael. Tos was Vayitzav Goymer steht bekosuv beim ersten Vayar Esav. Why does the Bechlal Pasuk have to say that Esav saw, that he told him to go to Padan Aram, is the file while bepoil is for his vorgekommen far vayelech Padan Aram. So over there, the order in the pasuk is Vayar Esav Kiroz Bnei Knan. So first the pasuk says they're bad, and then he went to Padan Aram. But there is not a question of why doesn't it say went to Padan Aram and then the Rois Bnei Knan, because that's the seder where it took place. The far vayelech is vorgekommen far vayelech Padan Aram. So the pasuk writes it first Vayar Esav. Und weil Af Yaakov hat es gepoilt, and this influenced and impacted Yaakov, as Vayishma Goimer Vayelech Padan Aram. So because they're bad and he has to go Padan Aram, this convinced him. That's why over there it comes first. But as far as Esav goes, those was their possible if he Pirush Rashi will masbir sein. What the pasuk, according to Rashi, wants to explain the zwei Protmen Hanogas Esav Kenal Siv Gimel Dalet, the two aspects, the two details in Hanogas Esav. How come he went to Yishmael and how come he didn't go to Padan Aram? Gehert es zum zweiten Vayar Esav. That belongs to the second Vayar Esav. And therefore, first he goes to Padan Aram. That's the Yaakov's part. And Esav says that Rosh Bnei Knan, that's why he shouldn't take from Bnei Yishmael. Like them is verstandig, like this we also understand, Favos Rashi bringt up. Why Rashi brings here down, nicht nor the protim zu welche, Vayishma Yaakov is mechuber, not just the details. The Rebbe asked before, should have stopped and said these details that it's connected. And why does he bring down Vayishma Yaakov? That's the connected part. Is mechuber, nor euch v'chishama Yaakov el Aviv, v'holach Padan Aram, v'chiroz b'nei Knan. The meat is Rashi oisun zum Masber. So why does Rashi bring this down? The meat is Rashi oisun zum Masber Zayin. Rashi's intends here to explain Favos Vayishma Yaakov. Why Vayishma Yaakov is mechuber b'lois ki borach v'chisholach, that he blessed him, ki beirach, and that he sent him, unit mechuber to Vayitzav Goimer, and is not connected to tell him don't take from the Bnei Knan, only to the going to Padan Aram. Weil der Ort von dem Prat Vayitzav Goimer, because the place of this till, when did he tell him? Welcher zrikt durch sein Tam in the Werte Geros Bnei Knan. He expresses it by saying the reason Rosh Bnei Knan, and that's why he instructed him, is Leute Esav and erst noch dem ganzen Seder von Vayishma Goimer Vayelech Padan Aram. That is according to Esav after Vayishma Yaakov Vayelech Padan Aram. That's where we will begin the story, not to go to Yishmael. And therefore, Rashi wants to tell you that Holach El Yishmael was after he went and that's why he didn't go there, Esav. But after that, as Geher zum Vayarvas und Bavir Talichas Esav to Yishmael. So this belongs to the Vayar. The Rebbe bringt Rashi euch dem Eisfir. And that's why Rashi also brings the conclusion, to make it clear as Vayitzav Goimer is Leuten Inhalt Rois B'nei Knan. That when he says that he told him to Yaakov, so according to because Rois B'nei Knan, Nit an inyan was is mechuber zu Vayishma Yaakov, Vayelech Padan Aram. That's not connected to Vayishma Yaakov Vayelech Padan Aram, which was associated with Yaakov. Nor a Chelek von zweiten Vayar. This is a part was hot bewirkt. Esav's alicha to Yishmael canal that convinced Esav to go to Yishmael. Ches. Rabbi, those was Rashi los tois dem vayitzav goimer beim oisrechnen de protim zu welchem vayishma Yaakov. So he doesn't bring down that don't take the benois Yishmael when he details, when he enumerates all the details that vayishma Yaakov is connected. He says vayishma Yaakov, but it doesn't say that Vaitzav not to go to Yishmael, which was the Rebbe's whole point before, because that wasn't something which he took to Esav as it applies to him. But this was that part of Gerois B'Recha does apply to him, but that part is not which applies to Yaakov's going to Padnarom. So the Rebbe says, "Those was Rashi lois is the Vaitzav by Moisrechen the Prot Zulach Vayishma Yaakov is mechuber by enumerating those details to which Vayishma Yaakov is connected. Is as nit blois mitzad them was in them Vayitzav goimer. It's not just because what Vaitzav and this." So Esav did not see what Esav gesehen an Inyan welcher nit kein Chibur to the andere Proten. He saw this. It's not connected to the other details. The other details were to send him to Padan Aram. The Reis B'nai Canaan are not connected to going to Padan Aram. Wie gesagt früher, als dem war Sabbat gesehen, weil Inyan was hat Shaykhus euch zu him. That's connected to him also. It's not just to Yaakov, because he should also not go. So what are the things that are connected to Yaakov, just to Yaakov? All the other details, going to Padan Aram, but not taking Bnei Yishmael. But in addition to that, Nar Oich Mitzadem, was Vayishma Yaakov hot in Esav Riyah. So besides that, Vayishma Yaakov, the way Esav saw it, Kein Chibur nit zum Vayitzav, that it's not connected to his father telling him, and that's why Vayishma Yaakov. Loit Esav's Meinung, according to Esav's opinion, is Yaakov mit sein Gehen kein Padan Aram davke gewen Eusen, Eusfolgen Yitzchok's Shlichus. He thought that he's going to Padan Aram specifically to fulfill the mission of Yitzchok with Deitzuvakum and the Brachas, in order to receive the Brachas. Hot des aber nit getan zu lieb dem Tzivu loy sikach. He didn't do it. It's not connected to loy sikach. Not to take. That's not where he's going to Padan Aram. So the Vayitzav isn't connected. That don't take Reis B'nai Canaan. Has not connected to him going to Padan Aram. He was just going there to get the brachas and not to fulfill the tzivu of loisikach. That too is an introduction to Esau going to Shmuel. Rashi brings in Sum V'Sayim Pirish, which Rashi brings in the end of his commentary. And also he went to Yishmael. This idea that Yaakov is just going to get the brachas and not at all, not because of Leisikach, because of that sibur. And this explains Yishmael. Esav mit sein Gehen zu Yishmael. When Esav went to Yishmael, is given Esav zu weisen. He wanted to prove, to show off, nit nor as it is Mekayim Yitzchok's rotzen. He don't only want to say that he does what Yitzchok wants, nor euch as beim Feld nit legabe Yaakov. that is not misgen l'gabi Yaakov. If Yaakov would be going to Padan Aram for two reasons, to get the brachas and also because of Eitzav, so it turns out that Esav was lacking something, but Esav wants to prove that Yitzchak, that Yaakov is not better for him at all. And what he's going to Padan Aram is just a bracha, nothing to do with it by Eitzav. He wanted to show, not as there is Mekayim Yitzchak Rosh, nor Oich, as Ben felt nicht l'gabi Yaakov, and he's not missing any l'gabi Yaakov. But Adrabah is noch feiner for him. He said he's even nicer than him. Weil Esav zuch zu Mekayim ze Yitzchak Shchoroschen, that he wants to fulfill his wish, even though he wasn't the commander in it. So let alone, he said that they shouldn't go to the Benois Kanani. That happened, went to Balaram, but he said that's not the reason why Yaakov went there. And he is doing his father's wishes. Adnaram is not applicable, but he's doing his father's wishes even without being commanded, not going to the Benois Canaan. And that's what he wanted to do. This is Mesichas Shabbos Parshas Toldos, Tovshin Chof Zayin.